The stars looked quiet, almost peaceful, but Commander Hale knew silence could hide terrible things. His ship moved slowly through the empty orbit of a dead world. From the window, the planet below looked like a grey stone. No lights, no oceans, no voices, only dust and broken mountains where cities once stood. A child's toy floated in the wreckage. It had been recovered by a scout drone. A small wooden horse, burned on one side but still shaped by gentle hands. Hale stared at it for a long time. He thought about the story everyone in the galaxy whispered now. One child had been harmed, and for that single act, an entire planet was erased. It was not fire or invasion that killed the world. It was the ancient law. The Guardians, the strange alien keepers of balance, had spoken clearly. If even one human child is harmed, the planet responsible will no longer exist. And they had kept their word. The memory of that judgment played again in Hale's mind. He had been there in the great hall of the council. 100 races gathered, their eyes fixed on the human envoy who carried the broken toy. The Guardians stood tall, their faces unreadable stone. One of them asked a single question: "Did you allow the harm?" The answer did not matter. The planet's leaders tried to argue, but the Guardians raised their hands. Light spread, and within hours the world was dust. For Hale, it was not just another mission. He had lost people he knew, traders and colonists, friends who had settled on that planet. He remembered one woman who used to send him messages filled with laughter about her garden. She and her child were gone now, buried in silence. The rule had always sounded like a story, a myth told to warn reckless powers. But now, every alien government in the galaxy feared it. They whispered that humanity was dangerous because of it. The Guardians had given this law long ago, and it was always linked to humans. Why only humans? Why children? No one fully knew. Inside the council chamber, the air had been heavy that day. Delegates shouted in many tongues. Some said the punishment was too much. Others argued it was just. Commander Hale had watched quietly, his jaw set, while humans were called a curse and a blessing at the same time. And then, after the planet's end, came the true warning. Another Guardian stepped forward and spoke in a voice that carried across every channel. "Remember this. Harm to a human child is the line. Cross it, and your world is gone. We do not forgive. We do not wait. The law is eternal." That sentence echoed across the stars. Traders carried it. Pirates repeated it. Even children on distant colonies whispered it before sleep. Hale thought about the meaning of such power. Humanity had become untouchable, but also feared. Some species began avoiding them. Others grew resentful. A quiet tension spread like cracks in glass. Hale knew it would not stay quiet for long. Back in orbit, Hale closed his eyes and saw the image of the child who started it all. Not the harm itself, no one spoke of the details, but the recordings that showed a small human figure walking in a marketplace, laughing, pointing at colorful fruits. Then the sound of panic, then silence. The Guardians never explained how they judged, only that they knew. Now a new council was called. Hale had orders to attend. He left the window, his boots heavy against the floor, and carried the toy horse with him. It was more than wood. It was proof of what could happen again. As he walked into the chamber, voices rose. Alien ambassadors stood in clusters, whispering nervously. Some looked at him with fear, others with anger. To them, humanity was not just another species. Humanity was a test, a line written into the galaxy itself. The council leader, an old alien with scales of bronze, struck the floor with his staff. "We gather because the law has spoken once more," he declared. Hale's heart tightened. Another child? Another judgment? A projection filled the room. It showed a small human child again. Different world, different faces, but the same story. A report of harm. The Guardians were already watching. Gasps filled the chamber. One ambassador shouted, "Not again! We cannot afford another world lost." Another voice cried, "Why must humans carry this curse?" Hale kept his face calm, but inside his chest fire burned. He knew what would happen. If the Guardians confirmed harm, another planet would be erased. Innocents would die, and perhaps once again, no one would truly know what had happened. He gripped the toy horse tighter, his knuckles white. This time, he told himself, he would not stand by. He would not watch another planet vanish without truth. The Guardian's image appeared, tall and faceless, voice deep as thunder. The law stands. The evidence will be reviewed. Prepare for judgment. The chamber went silent. Hale felt every eye turn toward him. Some begged for mercy. Some demanded answers. He gave none. He only thought of one question, one that would not leave his mind: who truly harmed the child? Because if the truth was different, if the story had been twisted, then a whole world might be destroyed for a lie, and in that thought, a darker warning rose. If someone could manipulate the law, then no planet was safe. Commander Hale stood straighter, his eyes steady, as the council waited for the Guardians to speak. But deep inside, he already knew his path. He would find the truth, no matter what it cost. The warning was clear. The galaxy had drawn a line of fire around human children. One step across, and entire worlds burned. But Hale believed there was more, and he would be the one to uncover it. The council chamber stayed heavy with silence long after the Guardians left. Delegates whispered in low voices, some demanding swift punishment, others begging for more time. Commander Hale remained at his place, the toy horse still in his hand. His eyes never left the new recording of the child that had just appeared. The image replayed, a small human child, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, walking near a crowded market. The child laughed, pointing at birds circling above. Then the sound of shouts. The view shook, then cut to static. Nothing more. The Guardians called it harm. But Hale's instincts told him something else. The cut, the static, the missing seconds, it did not feel complete. It felt like a story written to reach a certain end. That night, when the council adjourned, Hale returned to his quarters. He placed the toy horse on the table and activated a secure channel. A familiar face appeared, Liane, a linguist he trusted more than anyone. She had studied hundreds of alien languages and symbols. They showed the recording again, Hale said. His voice was low. Something is missing. I need you here. Liane adjusted her glasses and frowned. You think it was edited? I think it was prepared, Hale answered. And if the Guardians were shown only this version, then someone is pushing for destruction. Within hours, Liane and 2 more allies arrived. Dr. Riva, a medic known for her clear eye for detail, and Joran, a former smuggler who understood how information traveled in the shadows. Together they formed a small team, quiet, unofficial, but determined. Their first stop was the archive chamber of the council, a place guarded by drones and filled with shelves of crystal memory cores. Hale requested access to the official files of the incident. The archivist, a tall alien with silver skin, hesitated. These files are sealed by order of the Guardians, he said. Then show me the public ones, Hale replied. The public files were thin, almost empty. A single report, 3 short statements, and the same recording everyone had seen. No angles from other cameras. No full timeline. Just one clip. This is wrong, Liane whispered. There should be at least 6 feeds from a council-protected marketplace. Where are the others? Joran leaned closer to the screen. Someone cleaned it. Trust me, I've seen this before. Records don't vanish unless someone powerful wants them gone. They decided to travel to the planet itself, the one now under judgment. The world was called Meridia, known for its crowded streets and vibrant markets. When their shuttle landed, the difference was clear. People moved quietly, eyes lowered, voices hushed. Fear was thick in the air. As they walked through the market square, Hale noticed vendors selling goods with nervous hands. Stalls were open, but laughter was absent. Children were hidden indoors. The shadow of the Guardian's judgment already loomed. The team began to ask questions. A fruit seller remembered the day clearly. The child was laughing, she said, and then guards ran in. They pushed people aside. I did not see harm, only fear. Another witness, a baker, told a different story. The child fell, he said. A cut on the arm, nothing more. But the guards made it sound worse. The medic, Dr. Riva, carefully wrote down each version. Every account was different, every memory twisted by fear. Then a young boy approached quietly. He could not be more than 10. His hands shook as he held out a folded piece of paper. The child drew this, he whispered. I saw it before the guards took it away. Hale unfolded the paper. It was a child's drawing, simple lines and colors. The picture showed the marketplace, the birds, the people, and at the center, a white stone drawn in the child's hand. Strange symbols surrounded it, almost like a language. Lian's eyes widened. This is not random. These symbols belong to the old dialect of the Guardians, but they do not mean harm. They mean promise. Hale stared at the drawing. His chest tightened. If Lian was right, then the Guardians had been told a false story. The child had not been harmed in the way they believed. Before they could question further, Joran noticed something above. A drone, black and silent, hovered in the air. Its red light focused directly on them. "We're being watched," Joran hissed. The drone darted away. Hale knew what it meant. Someone did not want them asking questions. Someone was ready to stop them. They returned to the shuttle in silence. Hale placed the drawing beside the toy horse. 2 small pieces, yet they carried more weight than armies. That night, in the quiet of their quarters, the team studied the symbols. Lian traced them with her finger. "It is a code," she said slowly. "The child knew more than we think. This was not a random drawing. It is a message." "What kind of message?" Riva asked. Lian looked up, her face pale. "A warning. But not from the Guardians, from the child. It says, 'Do not believe the harm. Look deeper.'" Hale's mind raced. If this was true, then an entire planet might be destroyed for a lie. Someone powerful wanted the Guardians to punish Meridia, and only a child had tried to stop it. The next morning before dawn, Hale received a message on a hidden channel. A distorted voice spoke, "Stop digging. The law is clear. If you continue, Meridia will burn, and so will you." Hale closed the channel and looked at his team. Fear flickered in their eyes, but none of them turned away. He held up the child's drawing, the symbols glowing under the scanner. "We cannot stop," Hale said firmly. "If we do, truth dies, and then every planet will live in fear of a lie." The evidence was fragile, a toy, a drawing, whispers from frightened witnesses. But to Hale it was enough to fight, and he knew the next step. They had to uncover the origin of the law itself. Only then could they understand how it was being twisted. The drawing stayed on the table through the night, its lines glowing faintly under the scanner's light. Commander Hale could not sleep. He walked back and forth, the toy horse in his pocket and the child's drawing in his hand. The words, "Look deeper," haunted him. When morning came, the team gathered. Lian spoke first. "The symbols are clear. They come from an old dialect, one used only in the early ages of the Guardians. If you can read it now," Dr. Riva leaned closer. "Then how could a child know them?" Lian hesitated. Either someone taught the child, or the child found them in a place most people cannot reach. Joran smirked darkly. "Old ruins, old secrets. I've seen smugglers trade fragments of Guardian stone. The law may be older than the Guardians themselves." The word ruins struck Hale's mind like a spark. He remembered stories told in whispers, ancient temples left on forgotten moons, places where the Guardians first declared their laws. If they wanted truth, they had to go there. The Council would not give permission. Time was short, but Hale decided anyway. "We leave tonight," he said. The shuttle slipped away under cover of darkness, flying through quiet lanes of space. Their destination was an abandoned moon orbiting a red giant star. It was said that the Guardians once met there to carve their first laws into stone. When they landed, the ground crunched under their boots. Dust rose thick and red, and the ruins stretched before them like broken teeth. Tall pillars leaned, carved with faint marks that shimmered when touched. The air was heavy, as if holding breath. Lian's eyes widened. "This is it. The language here matches the child's symbols." They entered a crumbling hall. The walls glowed faintly as if alive, reacting to their presence. Hale felt uneasy, as though the stones were watching. In the center stood a circular slab, covered in the same symbols from the drawing. Lian bent down, her hands shaking as she traced the carvings. "This is the origin of the law." Hale frowned. "Read it." Her voice echoed in the chamber as she translated slowly. "Harm to the small is the greatest crime. Protection is eternal. But the meaning here, it is wider. It says harm in spirit or harm in trust, not only in body. Reva's eyes widened. So harm does not mean only wounds. It could mean fear, betrayal, or even lies. Hale's chest tightened. Then someone is twisting the words. They made the Guardians believe the child's laughter turned into pain. But the child was trying to show trust, not harm. The hall shook suddenly, dust falling from above. Joran cursed. We've been tracked. Outside, a dark ship descended, its lights cutting through the ruins. Hale's team rushed for cover, but drones swarmed quickly. A voice blasted from speakers, "Step away from the stones. The law is not yours to question." Blaster fire cracked. Hale and his team ducked behind pillars. Joran fired back, his shots scattering drones into sparks. Reva pulled Hale down as one beam cut the air above. Through the chaos, Hale held the drawing tight against his chest. "We can't let them take this. The child's message is the key," Leon shouted over the noise. "The slab, it can be activated. The words are not just carvings. They are memory." She pressed her hand to the stone. Light burst upward, forming a tall figure of glowing lines. A voice deeper than the stars filled the hall. "The law is balance. It is not to be twisted. Harm is truth, not shadow." The drones froze for a moment, their systems disrupted by the ancient signal. Hale seized the chance. "Download it!" he shouted. Then activated her scanner, recording every symbol and sound. The voice faded, the figure vanishing back into the stone. But its final words lingered. "Those who twist the law are enemies of life itself." The dark ship outside retreated quickly, as if afraid of the echo. The team escaped to their shuttle, hearts racing, the recording safe in their hands. As they rose into orbit, Hale looked back at the moon. He felt both hope and dread. They had proof now. The law was older and deeper than anyone understood. The Guardians were following a version too narrow, too easily bent. Reva touched Hale's shoulder. "If we bring this to the Council, will they listen?" Hale's eyes were cold. "They must, or Meridia will die for nothing." But Joran shook his head. "You don't understand. Whoever wanted this hidden will fight harder now. They will not let the truth reach open ears." Hale knew he was right. Already messages filled his console. Orders from the Council, demands from alien leaders, warnings from shadowed voices. The Guardians were preparing to pass judgment soon. Time was running out. He looked again at the child's drawing, the small white stone drawn in a shaky hand. It was more than a picture. It was a cry to be heard. The child knew the truth, Hale said softly. "And now so do we. We cannot stop here. We must show the galaxy what harm really means." The evidence was no longer just a toy and a drawing. Now they carried the voice of the old law itself, and with it, the chance to save a world. The return to the Council was heavy with silence. Commander Hale sat in the shuttle's command seat, staring at the recording from the ruins. The deep voice of the old law still echoed in his ears. "Harm is truth, not shadow. Those who twist the law are enemies of life itself." He knew this was enough to change everything. But would the Guardians listen? Would the Council allow it to be heard? Or would the evidence be buried, like so many vanished recordings? When the shuttle docked, the team was met not with guards of welcome, but with soldiers, long spears and cold eyes. The leader stepped forward. "The Council requests your presence." At once, Hale did not argue. He slipped the child's drawing into his inner pocket, the toy horse into his coat, and walked calmly. His team followed close behind. Inside the council chamber, the air felt like stone. Delegates from 100 species sat in their curved seats, their faces tense, their voices low. At the center stood the Guardians, tall, faceless, their presence colder than silence. The council leader raised his staff. "We are ready for judgment. Do you accept the Guardians' word?" The chamber filled with murmurs. Some delegates shouted, "Yes, end it now. We cannot delay." Others cried, "No, wait, there is doubt." Hale stepped forward. "There is more," he said firmly. His voice carried across the chamber. "The law is older than you think. What you call harm may not be harm at all. We have proof." Gasps filled the air. Some laughed, others sneered. "Proof?" One ambassador hissed. "No one questions the Guardians." Hale met the faceless gaze of the Guardians. "I do." He lifted the scanner. With a flick of his hand, The recording from the ruins filled the chamber. The voice of the old law thundered once again. The law is balance. Harm is truth, not shadow. Every corner of the room shook with the echo. Delegates leaned forward. Even the Guardians' heads tilted, their stillness shifting ever so slightly. Leon stepped up beside Hale. The child knew the symbols. This drawing is a message. It says, "Do not believe the harm." Look deeper. Someone is twisting your law for power. Reva held up her datapad. Witnesses confirm. The child was never gravely harmed. Fear was created, yes, but truth was twisted. Joran added with a smirk, "And I can show the governor's private transmissions." He wiped the files himself. He made the Guardians see only what he wanted them to see. Chaos erupted. Some ambassadors slammed their fists on tables, demanding silence. Others shouted that the Guardians must reconsider. The bronze-scaled council leader struck his staff again. "Enough! The Guardians will decide." The Guardians stepped forward, their forms tall and glowing. "The law is eternal. It cannot be questioned." Hale did not flinch. He held up the toy horse in one hand, the child's drawing in the other. "I am not questioning the law," he said, his voice firm. "I'm questioning the lies told in its name. If the law is truth, then you must face it, or your law becomes shadow." For a moment the chamber fell into stillness. The Guardians' glow dimmed, then brightened again, as if they were thinking. But then from the side another voice cut through. It was the governor of Meridia, his robes shining, his face calm. "Do not listen," he said. "These humans seek to save their own by twisting words. Their evidence is stolen from ruins, forbidden ruins. Can we trust thieves and smugglers?" He pointed at Joran. Murmurs rose again. Suspicion filled the chamber. Hale knew this was the turning point. The choice was not only the Guardians. It was his. He could remain silent and let the Guardians pass their judgment. Or he could risk everything by forcing the truth into the open, beyond the Council's control. He turned to his team. They nodded, each ready. Hale activated his comms. "Broadcast now," he ordered. Suddenly, every screen across the chamber, every ship in orbit, every settlement tuned to the Council feed, all of them lit up with the recording. The voice of the old law thundered across the stars, not just for the Council, but for the galaxy. The child's drawing appeared next, symbols glowing in white. The truth was no longer hidden. Ambassadors shouted in anger. Guards rushed forward, but it was too late. Billions had already seen. The governor's face turned pale. His lies could not be contained now. The Guardians stood still, their forms flickering. When they finally spoke, their words shook the chamber. "The law is eternal. Harm is truth, not shadow." "We will judge again," delegates gasped. The Guardians had never spoken of reconsidering. But now, before the eyes of the galaxy, they admitted it. Hale stood tall, his heart pounding. He had made his choice, and the galaxy had heard it. But as the Guardians turned to deliberate, Hale noticed something chilling. A message blinked on his datapad, words written in fire. "You have exposed the lie. Now you are marked." Hale knew then that the fight was far from over. The planet might be saved, but enemies in the shadows would never forgive him. Still, as he looked at the toy horse in his hand and the drawing on the screen, he felt a small, steady hope. One child's truth had changed the course of judgment, and humanity had shown it would not be silent. The judgment and aftershock. The council chamber felt like it had stopped breathing. The voice of the old law had finished echoing, yet its weight still pressed down on every corner of the hall. Ambassadors sat stiff, guards froze in place, and even the Guardians themselves stood in silent glow. The galaxy had heard the truth, and there was no way to hide it again. Commander Hale did not move. His team stood close beside him, their faces pale but determined. The toy horse rested in his hand, the child's drawing projected above them like a star. Billions of eyes across worlds were now watching. The Guardians spoke at last. Their voices blended into one, a sound like thunder across an endless canyon. "The law is eternal, but the law must remain whole. Harm in shadow is not harm in truth," murmurs spread. For the first time in living memory, the Guardians were clarifying their ancient words. Some ambassadors clapped their hands against the tables in disbelief. Others shouted protests, unwilling to accept change. The Guardians raised their arms and silence returned. "The world of Meridia will not be destroyed," they declared. "The child was not harmed in truth. The deception of its leaders is the true crime." Gasps swept the chamber. The governor of Meridia stumbled back, his face draining of color. Guards surrounded him quickly, their spears pointed at his chest. He tried to speak, to argue, but his words fell apart in panic. The council leader announced, "By order of the Guardians, the governor and his circle are stripped of power. They will face trial for corruption and lies." Relief washed over Hale's chest, but it was not victory that he felt. It was exhaustion, mixed with a shadow of unease. Meridia was safe, yes, but the law had been cracked open. Everyone now knew it could be bent, challenged, interpreted. That truth was a double-edged blade. Reva whispered, "You did it, Hale. You saved them." But Hale shook his head. "No, the child did. We only listened." Across the galaxy, screens continued to broadcast the child's drawing and the voice of the old law. On distant colonies, humans sat in silence, realizing their children were both shield and spark. On alien worlds, rulers debated in fear. If the law could be reread, what other secrets might it hide? The council adjourned in chaos. Some ambassadors stormed out, others argued over trade and alliances. But Hale stayed behind, watching as the Guardians faded into their chamber of light. Before vanishing, one Guardian paused, turning its faceless glow toward him. Its voice slipped into his mind alone. "You have walked where few dare. But beware, Commander. To change the law is to carry its shadow forever." The glow vanished. Hale was left with only silence. That night, in the quiet of his quarters, Hale placed the toy horse and the drawing side by side. He thought of the child, still alive, still laughing somewhere on Meridia. The galaxy would never know the child's face, but the child had shifted the course of history. Liane joined him, her voice soft. "Do you realize what this means? Every race, every power, they will test the boundaries now. They will search the ruins. They will question the Guardians. Some will want to use the law. Others will want to destroy it." Hale nodded slowly. "And humanity will stand at the center of it all. Loved by some, feared by many." Joran leaned in the doorway, his usual grin gone. "And hated by the ones who lost today. Trust me, Hale, you've made enemies who don't forgive. Whoever sent those drones, whoever sent that warning, they won't stop." Reva folded her arms. "So what now? Do we run? Do we fight? Or do we just wait for the next judgment?" Hale looked at the toy horse one last time. Then he picked it up and tucked it safely into his pocket. His answer was steady. "We protect the truth, wherever it hides, whatever it costs. Because if we don't, then the law is only a weapon for liars." The stars outside glowed faintly, scattered like sparks across black. Hale knew the galaxy was listening, waiting, trembling between fear and hope. A single child's drawing had shifted that balance. And now, every step ahead would matter more than ever. He rose to his feet, his eyes sharp with quiet fire. "The Guardians showed mercy today," he said, "but mercy alone won't keep peace. The law will be tested again. And when it is, we'll be there." His team nodded. The choice was no longer his alone. It belonged to all of them. To humanity itself. Outside the council station, transmissions raced across the void. Some worlds rejoiced. Others planned rebellion. And in the shadows, unseen voices whispered of revenge. But in the middle of it all, the message of the child remained. "Do not believe the harm. Look deeper." Hale whispered those words to himself as the ship prepared for departure. They would be his compass now, his warning and his promise. The galaxy had learned that harming a single human child could erase a world. But now it had also learned something more dangerous. Truth could save one, and truth, once set free, could never be silenced again.